guys, welcome and welcome back to the House Huddle. It's been a little bit, but let's get caught up on our reading. And today I'm going to dive into chapter 5. It's called Managing Your Baby's Day. There will be a link below if you are interested in purchasing the book so that you can read it on your own. And while I do read word for word out of the book, I do announce whenever I see charts or graphs, and typically I'll put that in a visual display within the video, and then we will have a deeper dive discussion regarding the case directly towards the end. So I will tell you, I am recording this sitting facing the beautiful ocean and watching a storm roll in down here on the Forgotten Coast of Florida. It truly is a forgotten coast because when you think of Florida, most people think of Miami or Panama City or Destin. And I will tell you, the Forgotten Coast is just a little gem that's hidden along Highway 98. And it's beautiful. You can, especially during hurricane season, growing up here, this was an area where we would watch the storms just billow, like the clouds would just roll in and you could see lightning storms. And, that was just small town life growing up in high school down here on the coast. So just a little reminiscing and reading. So let's go ahead and dive in. Chapter 5, Managing Your Baby's Day. We previously defined parent-directed feeding as a 24-hour infant management strategy designed to help parents connect with the needs of their baby and help baby connect with everyone in the family. The two relevant thoughts contained within this definition include 24-hour and management. The first represents a baby's day, and the second speaks to mom and dad's involvement in the baby's day. They are supposed to be the managers. But what exactly are parents supposed to manage? The short answer is the continually evolving, changing, and growing needs of their baby. Children come into this world with basic needs for nutrition, sleep, cognitive growth, and love and security. As a baby grows, these needs do not change, but how these needs are met will change. Therein lies the challenge. How do you establish a baby's routine that is predictable yet flexible enough to meet a baby's growing and changing feed, wake, sleep needs? Part of the answer comes from understanding the meaning of flexibility. And I will pause right there because many questions have come up in the comment sections on the Facebook groups that I've seen, and a lot of scrutiny about Shanann never used Babywise. She did her own version. And I guess it really just depends on who you ask, because you, at least up to chapter 5, up to now reading this book, it's very much a blueprint of what you could do. And then, of course, it's constantly telling you that you have to adjust and evolve it to what best suits your baby and your family. So I do think that it's important to recognize and truly understand what it means to be flexible. The root word flexible means the ability to bend or be pliable. To think of a flexible item, think of something with a particular shape that can bend or be pulled and then returns to its original shape. Returning to its original shape is perhaps the most critical element of flexibility. And I really like this example, guys. And I think it's something that we could think about and really implement even in our adult lives, because a lot of people mistake flexibility for lack of structure and then kind of blend it all together. Or they take someone who has structure to be inflexible or non-accommodating. And that's not necessarily true, because based off of the meaning of flexibility, if you can bend it and then it returns to its original shape, then it's considered flexible. But if you constantly bend, or if you constantly stretch things thinner and thinner, then when they do go back, it's not going to go back as it once was, because depending on how long you've been depleted and stretched thin, or, working under stress and pressure, all of the deciding factors that have been acting upon your life, you're not going to go back as you were. Ask anyone that has gained 20 or 30 or 40 pounds in their 30s as opposed to when they were teenagers. They'll tell you, you don't, have a baby as a 20-year-old. Most people will snap back to pre-baby weight. Try doing that in your 30s and not so much. Like, things slow down, things change over time. So the longer you're doing something, it's no longer flexibility. You're then losing that structure. And so I think that's really, really important, because on the day-to-day basis, we only see the highlights in Shanann's videos, whereas we're not seeing every single day. There's several days where there may be absolutely nothing going on at home or outside the home, and so then, yeah, she was able to maintain that routine. And then other days when, like, for example, I know with my own children, I tried desperately as hard as I could to schedule their doctor's appointments either an hour or two before nap time or after, because I knew that they would fall asleep in the car on the way home, and at least that could be their nap times. Again, to each their own. I was not there with Shanann raising her children, so personally, I don't feel like I'm not going to sit here and criticize a woman's scheduling for her children. But I do think it's really important to note the definition of flexible, what it means, and even as an adult today, making sure that you're not telling yourself that I'm just being flexible, I'm just being accommodating to other people. It's not being flexible, guys, if your path and your dreams and your goals and everything else, if they can't basically like snap back to where they previously were. Apologies. Okay, so let's jump back in here. Returning to its original shape is perhaps the most critical element of flexibility. During the crucial early weeks of stabilization, it is important that you shape and form your baby's routine. Too much flexibility will not allow this to happen. That is why a baby's routine must first be established before flexibility is introduced into the baby's day. Meaning you're going to want in the beginning to really get their schedules structured and down to a T, because then you're going to be able to slowly work in where you want to be flexible. It's the same thing with potty training a new puppy and, implementing a new diet or trying to figure out like what food sensitivities you have. You take it all away, or you start at a baseline and then you slowly add new stuff into it. So the 3 activities of a baby's routine are feeding time, wake time, and nap time. With age-appropriate modification, these same 3 activities continue up through a baby's first birthday. The challenge for parents is knowing when the changes are coming and how they should respond. To approach our topic systematically, we will first walk through a year's worth of feed, wake, sleep changes, discussing when they come and how to adjust your baby's routine. Secondly, review specific guidelines associated with the feed, wake, sleep activities for the first 12 weeks. And third, introduce some general principles governing routines. We begin our discussion with the introduction of the merge principle. Understanding the merge principle. Merge is a very appropriate word in the context of early parenting because the definition describes exactly what should happen throughout baby's first year. Parental management is all about merging the changing needs of one growth stage with the next. This concept is best explained by an illustration. On the next page, and I'll post this, take note of the sample newborn schedule. There are 9 feed, wake, sleep cycles distributed evenly over a 24-hour period. Each cycle from the beginning of one feeding to the beginning of the next is approximately 2.5 hours in length, which is consistent with the basic nutrition and sleep needs of a newborn. While 9 feed, wake, sleep cycles a day sounds fatiguing, and it is, they are also necessary but only temporary. The sample times listed on the various schedules found within this chapter are for illustration use only. For example, we are using 7 a.m. as the first morning feed, but realize that your baby may start at 6 a.m. or 8 a.m. and then you just adjust accordingly. So you personalize the times to fit your baby's needs. And you can see the sample schedule for weeks 1 through 2. And then you'll see weeks 48 through 52 and how they are dramatically different. For anyone comparing the two sample schedules, the differences should be obvious. Most notably, the 9 feed-wake sleep cycles for a newborn found in the first schedule were reduced by a baby's first birthday to 3 major feed-wake sleep cycles: breakfast, lunch, and dinner. What happened to the other 6 cycles? One by one, they merged as the baby developed. The 9 cycles transitioned to 8. 8 eventually became 7, 7 cycles became 6, and so on, until baby's routine was comprised of just breakfast, lunch, and dinner. The 3 most urgent questions Babywise moms and dads are eager to have answered include: what changes can parents expect? When can parents expect them on an average? And what adjustments will parents have to make? Every baby is different when it comes to the timing of these merge transitions. We know the average times when cycles begin to merge, but we cannot pinpoint the exact times when they will take place with your baby, although the early weeks and months are more predictable than the later months. Of equal importance is the number of merges. While 9 cycles is the average number for most PDF newborns, some mothers might feel more comfortable starting with 10 feed-wake sleep cycles. There are some babies who, right after birth, adapt to 8 cycles. Regardless of what works best for an individual family, the principle of merging is still applicable. Fortunately, there are some general guidelines that can help any parent navigate the various cycles. Guiding principles to merging feed-wake sleep cycles. 1. Understanding the principle of capacity and ability. A mother cannot arbitrarily decide to drop a feeding or adjust a nap time unless the baby has physical capacity and ability to make the adjustment. For example, a 2-week-old baby has neither the capacity to go 8 hours without food nor the ability to sleep through the night. Thus, at this point in time, a mother should not be thinking about dropping the night feeding. 2. Understanding the principle of time variation. While the length of each feed-wake sleep cycle during the early weeks of life remains fairly consistent, eventually each cycle will take on its own unique features. For example, for a baby at 4 months of age, 1 feed-wake sleep cycle might be as short as 2.5 hours, while another might stretch to 3.5 hours. At 6 months, everything changes again. The range variation depends on your baby's age, unique needs, and the time of day. 3. Understanding the first-last feeding principle. No matter what merge is taking place, when adjusting a baby's routine, the first feeding of the day is always strategic. Without a consistent time set for the first morning feeding, a baby may feed every 3 hours, but each day's routine will be different. That is not good for mom or baby. While there can be some flexibility to this first feeding time, try to keep it within a 20-minute time frame. Remember, flexibility comes after a routine is established. Mom will come to appreciate the consistency of time because she can plan her day around her baby's feedings and nap time. After your baby is sleeping through the night, 8 hours, the first and last feeding of the day become the 2 key strategic feedings. It does not matter if your baby is on a 3, 4, or 4.5 hour routine. All other feed-wake sleep cycles will fall within those 2 quote-unquote fixed feeding times, and thus they need to remain fairly consistent. 4. Understanding the principle of individuality among children. All babies will experience the same merges, but they do not experience them at the same time. For example, Corey began sleeping 8 hours through the night at 6 weeks of age. Across town, his cousin Anna began sleeping 8 hours through the night at 10 weeks. That is a 4-week difference. However, by 12 weeks, Anna began sleeping 12 hours a night, whereas Corey never slept more than 10 hours a night his entire first year. These 2 babies experienced the same 2 merges, dropping the middle of the night and late evening feedings, but at different times and according to their individual sleep needs. 5. Understanding the principle of 2 steps forward and 1 step back. While some feed-wake sleep merges happen suddenly and take only a day to become a new pattern, most merges take 4 to 6 days before a new normal is established. For example, during week 6, your baby begins sleeping between 5 to 6 hours at night. By week 7, he is up to 7 hours, then for a few nights falls back to 5 hours. Eventually, he stretches his nighttime sleep to 8 consistent hours and then 10 or more. 2 steps forward and 1 step back is common during the various merges. The same can be said when you're working on a marriage. 6. The principles work equally well for both bottle and breastfed babies. From principle to practice, what are the developmental triggers signaling it is time to merge 2 cycles into one? For the PDF baby, most triggers are predictable and fall into a chronological range of time. Since there are 7 major transitional merges over the course of the first year, there are 7 major triggers parents should look for. Merge 1 between weeks 3 and 6. Most babies start out with 2 feedings during the middle of the night. Sometime between weeks 3 and 6, PDF babies begin to stretch to their middle of the night sleep from 3 to 3.5 and even 4 hours. Excuse me. Consequently, they begin to merge the 2 a.m. and 5 a.m. feedings into a single 3 a.m. middle of the night feed. Graphically, merge 1 looks like this. This merge reduces 9 cycles into a 24-hour period to 8. At this point in time, most PDF babies sleep from 11 p.m. to 3 a.m. They nurse or take a bottle and then sleep again until 6:30 to 7 a.m. Sleeping 4-hour stretches at night becomes baby's new normal. Congratulations, only 6 more merges to go. Adjustment to baby's routine after this merge. There are no major adjustments needed to feed, wake, sleep routines during the day. Mom will notice wake times are beginning to lengthen, but overall there is no significant change to the cycle. And then it shows the breakdown of the next cycle where it merges again. It merges between weeks 7 and 10, and then it does it again through weeks 10 and 15, and then 16 through 24. And basically what this is doing is it's just showing you that each step along the way, when a feeding gets taken out, then the baby is sleeping longer at night. Now, something it does mention that I thought was worth noting is notes about dream feeds. Mothers will commonly ask if there is a difference between the late evening feed and the dream feed, since they both fall around the same time at night. Yes, there is a difference. The late evening feeding provides the necessary nutrition baby needs and is part of a baby's routine up through the first 3 months. The dream feed comes later. It is not offered because the baby needs the calories, but to help the breastfeeding mom maintain her milk supply. Not all mothers need to offer a dream feed, but the probability increases as mom's age moves into her mid-30s. So again, you have another merging coming up between weeks 24 and 39, and 28 to 40, 46, 52. I will show these on the screen for you. So it talks about how to merge and drop your feedings, when to do it, and even like when you're working, how to better establish those sleep routines. And again, this whole chapter, the reason I am shifting through a couple of these pages to get to the end is because a lot of this is just literally breaking down, okay, if you are feeding between, if you're doing 12, 2, and 4, then eventually that 2 a.m. is going to get cut out, and so then your baby's going to sleep for 4 hours. And that is pretty common knowledge, even if, it takes for you to read just 1 or 2 articles about feeding, or even think about your feeding schedules as a healthy adult. I know when I was competing and monitoring my meals for competitions, I could tell, because I was eating every 2 hours, and I could tell metabolically when that 2-hour mark was coming back around. So, we grow up and we evolve. However, our basic needs still remain. So, let's see. Some general guidelines considering context. Context. Understanding the practical implications of this word will prove to be a valuable tool throughout your parenting. Looking into the context of the moment allows you to make a decision based on what is best, given the present circumstances. Responding to the context of a situation allows a mother or father to focus on the right response in the short term without compromising long-term objectives. Here are some examples of context and PDF flexibility. 1. The two-week-old was sleeping contentedly until his older brother decided to make a social call. Big brother notifies mom that baby is awake and crying. It is another 30 minutes before his next scheduled feeding. So what should she do? She can try resettling the baby by patting him on the back or holding him, placing him in his bouncy seat. And a third is to feed him and rework the next feed-wake sleep cycle. Be sure to instruct the older brother to check with mom before visiting his sleeping, brother or sister. Number 2, you're on an airplane and your infant daughter begins to fuss loudly. The mental conflict begins. She just ate a little over an hour ago. What do? If all attempts to play and entertain the baby fail, go ahead and feed her, for the context of the situation dictates the suspension of your normal routine. Once you arrive at your destination, make the appropriate adjustments to your baby's schedule, and there is your flexibility. And it gives another example of, when feeding may be delayed or your day may be thrown off. But again, it goes back to the true heart of the definition of flexibility. Most days will be fairly routine and predictable, but there will be times when flexibility is needed due to unusual or unexpected circumstances. Life will be less tense when parents consider the context of a situation and respond appropriately for the benefit of everyone. Thoughtful parental responses often determine whether a child is a blessing to others or a source of mild irritation. Note the word mild. That's hilarious. Summary. How you meet your baby's feed, wake, and sleep needs says a world about your overall parenting philosophy. Learning how to establish your baby's routine and knowing when to make adjustments for growth transitions is all a part of being needs sensitive. At the heart of the PDF plan lie 3 basic infant activities: baby feeds, baby is awake, and baby sleeps. Matching baby's needs with parental care is all part of the process of learning how to proactively love your baby. Then again, for additional information, it gives the website.
Coming back to this photo, I really, as a content creator, I try to look at the photos that we have that were published and they're public, and really just reflect back on the content that's being shared in the video. And so today's video, and what really stands out to me, is that term flexibility and the example that the book gave us, as meaning, flexibility or being flexible means that you're able to bend and you're able to adapt and adjust. But once that pressure, once that force is off of you, you spring back to your original position or your original form. Let's take that definition and apply that to a relationship or a marriage. And you are the family unit. Like, you are the husband and the wife. You are the partnership. You are the marriage. It's between the two people. Now, no matter how good, how bad, the ebbs and flows of marriage and relationships, no one's trying to deny that, correct? I think we can all say that even if you've been married 10, 15, 25, 30 years, that you've definitely had some ups, downs, you've had some highs, some lows, and you've probably even had a few moments where you wanted to call it quits, but something made you stick it out. Keeping in mind, this is when it's just the two of you. But much like the example that I tell my children about talking, and I use the toothpaste as an example of once you squeeze it out, it's very hard and nearly impossible to put that toothpaste back into the tube. The same can be said when an affair happens. Guys, I really think that's the slippery slope that Chris Watts found himself on. Oh, she's just a coworker. I don't even really talk to her that much. I only see her in the, in the lobby, or in the, I see her when I go drop my lunchbox off or whatever. And that's how these things start. It's one little thing. Now, I'm not saying you have to have self-control. I mean, it's unhealthy if you're in a marriage or in a relationship where you feel like you have to micromanage what the other one does because you don't trust that they're going to make good decisions. That's not a healthy relationship either. If you're going to be married, you have to be aware that there are going to be outside sources and outside forces that are going to try to weasel their way in. And unlike a rubber band that gets popped back one time and snaps back into its regular shape, a marriage is not like that. You throw a third person into a marriage, and that's not flexibility, guys. That's broken. There's not a single person in this entire Watts case that, in my opinion, ever set out to create this family only to destroy it. I don't believe, not through the hand or by the hands of Shanann, not by the hands of Chris, not by the hands of either set of grandparents or brothers or sisters. I do not believe that that was at all what happened in this case. What happened in this case scares the living hell out of most people because it's happening every single day. The way the narrative paints it, you had a seemingly perfect family. He had it all. She had it all. There were problems, but nothing would warrant this type of devastation. And yet, you have people walking next to you or in your neighborhood who genuinely are holding on by a thread because they're facing many of the same issues that we see in the Watts. We're seeing family alienation. We're seeing financial struggles. You're seeing brinks of divorce. You're seeing affairs. You're seeing differences in parenting. You're seeing the marital breakdown. And the list goes on. I'll leave you guys with this chapter. I know we dove into this book because we're trying to just have a better understanding of what this method is that Shanann allegedly or claimed that she used with the girls. And in doing so, I feel like there's even things that we can be learning as we read. Because if you're only reading the book with me to judge her, then you're missing the whole point of even reading the book. We're reading it to understand. And it was really interesting, I felt, to have the flexibility angle and the demonstration of knowing when you're actually being flexible and then knowing when you're actually causing yourself harm or damage that will leave you never being able to be the same as you once were. Until next time.